Today on Spectrum, we turn to the fount of the fashionable, where design ideas find their form in fabric and where local fashion designers ply their skills to produce distinctive Hawaiian apparel. Clothing is something we all share. It is a universal language that can say so many different things about ourselves. It can be conservative, corporate identification. It can be bold, maybe even outrageous, a look into the future. Fashion in Hawaii has grown up in the past years. It is now among the top 5 largest industries in the state, with more than 150 companies producing garments of different styles for all ages. In Hawaii, our fashion can say much about our environment. The colors, the lifestyles, the islands, and their uniqueness. How do some of the local designers make their statements of person and place? Before any statements can be made, one must first learn the elements, the fundamentals. In fashion design, those basics are taught in classes such as this senior design class at the University of Hawaii by Gloria Fura.
Well, fashion designers are generally portrayed in movies or when you see them on television shows as well-dressed, generally, in their style, in their showrooms perhaps with beautiful fabric, and some lay it out on the floor, whatever. The working designer is totally different. They generally work in the most comfortable clothes they can, because it's hard work. It's very active work sometimes. And the students see the difference when they go out for field experience. And we try to impress them all the time on the fact that it isn't a glamour job. There's a little glamour at the end, perhaps when they do the fashion show and they are accepted. It's their day in the spotlight. But the rest of the time, they're behind the scenes working. When I returned here to the faculty in 1958, I was asked to do a survey of the businesses, fashion and merchandising. And the response was that they really needed new people coming out. The fashion industry had been going for about 10 years. It just mushroomed. And they saw the need for a pool of creative talent to draw upon for future. Most of the manufacturers were husband and wife teams which just developed the woman could make interesting clothes for her children. The husband saw the necessity for going out and selling these, and it just sort of mushroomed that way. It was a period in time in which you could do no wrong in manufacturing. The product was wanted by everybody, and it just grew like topsy. Very few had formal training of any type. There were a few, but they were minimum.
As a result, the emphasis of the university's home economic clothing courses was redirected from personal sewing to creating garments for the public.
The curriculum that we have today, we strive to develop the creative talents of the students and to inspire them towards innovative thinking. At the same time, give them a background in management and leadership skills so they can make decisions in this fast-changing, fast-paced international world that they're going into. We're very fortunate to have a large collection of historic garments, both Asian and Western. And we use these garments to develop this creative talent in the students. So we bring the garments in, they can examine them, see how details are done, and It's a constant learning process. They are encouraged to go out into the community. We take field trips to the Honolulu Academy of Arts, the Bishop Museum, the Mission Houses Museum. We've even had a speaker from astronomy give us a slideshow on the rings of Saturn, just to show the students that any place is a place where you can get ideas from. They research the libraries, historical magazines, and use this as background. They also are taught to pick up the trends which are happening in the current marketplace. They read Women's Wear Daily, and American Fabrics, other source material for designers. And then they go and research to get their own ideas, rather than copying a name designer who's already in the market.
By the end of the 4 years, a graduate of the university's fashion design program will be equipped to start his or her own business. Not all students in the program aim for a professional career, but for those who do, they have their expectations.
I wanted to work in Hawaii for a while, just gaining experience and later trying the mainland market just to see how different it is, and probably come back and bring my experience back here.
I've worked in a factory here in the islands, and it's really interesting how the factories here are, and I'd like to gain more experience on the mainland, because it's really hard here. It's competitive. The islands are small, and the market, well, it's not a very high turnover here. So I'd like to just broaden my design skills on the mainland, perhaps LA, and I'd like to go to New York, definitely. That's where it's at.
It's a long step from the classroom to the commercial fashion world. Here at Malia, designers create for a customer they know well.
That looks good.
I think you're going to like them.
More than 20 years ago, Bill and Mary Foster began a small dress company in Honolulu. Today, that company, Malia International, is Hawaii's leading manufacturer in women's resort wear, shipping nearly 90% of its line to the mainland. Malia's president, Bill Foster, explains the company's growth.
We started off with a company that was really quite small and devoted really to local marketing. And we made the decision to go to the mainland primarily because the tourist market in 1960 wasn't anywhere near what it is today, and that seemed to be the place to go. But that's a highly sophisticated market, and it took us a long time to learn how to deal with it. But bringing to that market resort clothing, which was influenced deeply by the people, the cultural heritage of the islands, the environment, the sea and the sky and the prints and the leisure living of the islands, was something that we were able to capture, and I think is largely responsible for the fact that we continue to grow.
Mary Foster, also known as Malia, is the director of design and knows her customer profile well.
I designed for the Malia woman. The Malia woman has been very carefully defined over the years. She is probably somewhere between 18 and 60. Even my mother, who's 83 years old, wears Malia. And she's an active woman. She's a responsible woman. She loves color. She does not want to go unnoticed. She has a good time. She's happy. She knows that these clothes reflect her spirit. She likes dogs and books and a career. She might even like antiques like I do. Yes, I think I am the Malia woman. Malia? Hi, Kay. I'm fine, how are you? A good day. That's terrific. Well, the difference between designing for a mass market or a volume house and custom individual designing, there are two major differences. One is that our market is so much greater. We have to be aware of it more on a constant basis. We have to be aware of its position. We have to be aware of the things that influence it, like economics, weather. We have to be aware of how it changes, and it can change very readily, very rapidly. We have to respond quickly as we can. When we do our own fabrics, of course, it takes us a little time, but we have to respond to it. Also, when you have mass marketing and mass production, you have, along with that, more concerns. And with more concerns, you have to have a team. It's not humanly possible for one person to take care of the things as they mount up. So that's why we've developed a design team here.
I like to make it simple, like.
Okay.
So I would eliminate this waistline to make this dress. It's very simple and take it down. I think it is a little.
This in-house team of designers and artists create the two essential characteristics of the Malia line: the fabric design and the style of its cut.
These stripes, I don't care for very much, so I'm going to replace some like this.
Mary Foster meets often with her team supervisors, Director of Art Whitney White and style designer Reiko Hori. Here they critique a dress design sample before it goes into production.
And slim down the side. I think it looks much more
Better.
accented by a sash.
Don't you think this looks rather bare? Color?
It's too much
I
white
like
up
to
there.
place on the another with the stripes.
It's going to help a lot.
Yeah.
That way. Still you'll be able to see the white button quite a well.
No more yardage.
We have to work it out. It's I'm sure. Well,
It will take more.
yes.
Terrific.
But the garment looks nice at the best thing.
The exclusivity of Malia's fabric design is a very important factor in our uniqueness. We have our own art studio here, and we can do anything we want to on fabric. We have wonderful resources in the Orient for printing. And many mainland manufacturers don't have those advantages.
We design our fabrics in primarily 3 different ways. Probably the majority of them come right out of the artist's own creative minds through magazines, libraries, bookstores, card shops, taking a hike, whatever, whatever they want to do. And they develop ideas and thoughts and present them, and we take them from there.
Of these lines and bring them inwards instead of
Yeah.
I'd like that same wind sail effect that you have there in here. I agree.
Second way would be through direction. If we want a certain story, if we want a certain look, let's say we feel like taking off on wood blocks or primitives or animals, then we specifically design prints more as a one-on-one team effort. And the third way would be specific direction. We need graphic. We need a monotone. We need a specific floral of some sort.
While a style may begin with a sketched out idea, it is here in the pattern room where style designer Reiko Hori takes the abstract and makes it into a garment called a sample. This sample allows the designer a chance to determine if the style and the fabric complement each other, and to make changes before it goes into production. These samples are made by Reiko's staff, who cut the master patterns and lay them out on the fabric before sewing them together.
I spend many days every year traveling to stores and talking to hundreds of ladies who love Malia or who maybe don't love Malia. And very often they tell me they need pockets, they need sleeves, they want to cover up, they're involved with air conditioning. They can't wear a sundress on every occasion. Why don't you make sleeve dresses? Why don't you make sportswear? All kinds of suggestions, compliments, and criticisms. And it's putting those in and using that feedback that makes us respond.
Once the sample has been approved, its design goes into production. The fabric is laid out on tables and then covered by markers or sheets of pattern tracings. Cutters slice through many layers of fabric at once, producing numerous pieces of the same pattern in different materials. Then the pieces are bundled and sent to the other side of the factory to be sewn. Each seamstress has her own specialty: collars, sleeves, seams. The garment begins to take shape as it moves from one machine to the next. For Mary Foster, production, even if it is mass production, is a personal business. Here she speaks about the people who make her clothes.
I think I look at every day the way they handle the fittings, the painting, the pell-on, a tiny little piece fit on to a tiny little collar by hand. It's not done by robot or lasers or any of those things. I like it this way, and I'm pretty sure I never want it to change.
As distinct from the large manufacturers, the Hawaiian world of fashion design also includes designers who create clothing in limited quantities. These designers work out of their homes or small shops. They are known as one-of-a-kind designers and limited production designers. 12 years ago, Jeffrey and Jan Berman began designing one-of-a-kind dresses under the label of Fabrications. Later, they added another line entitled Jeffrey Bar to offer lower-priced dresses and separates in limited quantities to other stores.
The local market, of which I feel that I'm very strongly involved in, up until very recently, has only offered to the consumer two basic concepts. One being what we call today the traditional moo look, which is basically a garment that is designed for that older, more matronly, conservative type of customer. Or she offers the young, junior California look. 90% of our women actually fall in between these two. And that I feel that's the type of niche that I'm trying to fill for the local market in the way that I design, both on my couture level as well as on the Jeffrey Bar wholesale level. I give my customer a well-designed garment, which I feel, because of my type of background of being a designer and knowing good design, I offer to her a garment that is going to look good on her. I know that my customer is not Miss Beautiful that everybody sees on stage as a model or that everybody wishes they looked like. I'm more realistic about that and know that my customer is basically a woman over 30 who physically is active, but her body is changing because as you get older, this happens. She tends to be a little more conservative in the way she looks at her body, and so I offer that type of thing in my clothing. My objective is to make people look as beautiful as they want to look. Dealing with them physiologically, and that they then put in the psychological input themselves, which then carries the way they look in clothing. Because in reality, unless you psychologically feel good about yourself, you're never going to look good in anything at all.
On the second floor above his Fabrications retail store in Honolulu, Jeffrey Berman works with seamstresses and assistants creating samples for the Jeffrey Bar line.
Why am I a fashion designer? I'm a frustrated artist. I think most people who are really into the fashion end of it, the true fashion end of it, are probably people who have been into other art fields and have found that it's very difficult to make a living off of it. So why not figure a way of doing what you like to do or some branch of it and still make money. I really love what I do. But glamour, that's another thing. Yes, it's magnificent to see your things up there on stage, you know, and everybody clapping and screaming how marvelous it is. But I think the real crux of it is whether what you're doing is what people want and whether they're going to be willing to buy it. You can do and design the most glamorous, the most beautiful things in the world, but if they don't sell, you know, it's another story. It's like a normal artist in the way I've always looked at artists and the way they operate. You've got to be more realistic about what you do and realize that if you want to produce something that has glamour, statement, feel, design to it, be my guest and do it, and I believe I do that. But you must preface it with the fact of knowing that it has to be something that people do want. And that unless you really look at that realistically in itself, the glamour, if it exists, will soon lose itself very quickly, because if nobody wants it, it's not glamorous.
Gay Pope specializes in hand-dyed silk garments and uses her home as a workplace. Because of her unique dyeing process, she cannot duplicate garments exactly, and therefore is known as a one-of-a-kind designer.
To design a one-of-a-kind piece is basically a fun effort because it takes your imagination, whatever creativity you can muster up, and you're doing what you want to do, so you put your best efforts into that rather than having someone say, I'd like 200 pieces of that exact style. To me, that's death. I couldn't do that. It would kill any kind of creativity that I had at all. To take one piece and put whatever colors I wanted to into it takes some energy, whereas putting that energy into 200 pieces, by the time I got through with a lot of different pieces of the same thing, the energy would be gone and there wouldn't be any interest left in it. So I can put all of that energy into one piece and have something that I like, that hopefully someone else will like too, so that I can market it. The fabric that I use is all silk. It's milled in Shanghai and I import it from Shanghai. When it arrives here it's white. And I mix the dyes when I decide what colors I'm going to use. Usually when I walk out in my workshop and start in the morning, I have some idea of what kind of colors I'm going to use for the day. What I'm doing with this is hand painting a tunic top. When I hand paint, I always cut the piece first so that it can be individually painted and I know exactly where I'm going to put a design. So I treat the silk as though it were a piece of canvas. Lay it out flat, that way I can really see where I'm going to put my design and start to paint it. This works a lot better having it flat. This way I can control the lines better. The dyes don't run.
Yeah.
Like many one-of-a-kind designers, Gay does much of her own sewing. She also contracts with professional seamstresses such as Yoko when numerous orders come in. Unlike a large volume house which operates continuously, Gay's production is limited by how much she can accomplish. This in turn has affected her approach to design.
When I first began designing, I had to learn how to sew first. So my pieces stayed very simple because my sewing knowledge was so poor. And then the line kind of grew from then. I added kimonos and pants and camisoles and long dresses that could all work together. And they've stayed simple. I don't use lots of structured lines in my clothes. I don't have zippers, no darts. The silk is so hangs so well and drapes so well by itself that I feel it doesn't need to be structured by any kind of extra little sewing techniques that you would put into heavier fabric.
So you bring some and I'll bring some.
Gay and her assistant Mary move the dye vats outside and go to work creating one-of-a-kind garments.
I do not design for any specific woman. I think more it would be a concept of a woman who is an interesting, imaginative, energetic person who enjoys wearing something different, who feels good about herself and clothes and really wants to wear something fun. I think it's more that concept of person than it is an individual type or age group of woman that I design for.
Okay. It's just living and working in Hawaii has influenced me greatly.
If you hold it,
all of the colors that I use are around me all the time. Every day, it's what I see. Hawaii is a very vibrant place, and as a result, I think the colors that I work with are probably pretty vibrant. What a wonderful compliment to me to have someone else buy something that I've made. It's wonderful. It's probably why I'm still doing what I'm doing, aside from the fact that I enjoy it. If no one were buying things and wearing them, I would probably stop, do something else. It's great. That's the whole thing of making a one-of-a-kind design. That to me that's the reward in itself, is seeing someone else wear it and enjoy themselves in it.
When you least expect it, glamour may appear. In a cafe, around a corner, on the street, in an elevator. The next time you're admiring the glamorous or the fashionable, remember, behind every Hawaiian design lay thought, inspiration, planning, and many busy hands. Watch now as the Fashion Guild of Hawaii presents the creations of many local designers. And join us again on our next Spectrum.
Thank you.